Welcome to Calcast, your Create International podcast. God Network News, where we give you a new perspective
on events happening in our world today.
This is GNN.
This is God Network News, episode 203. Welcome, GNN fans, to another episode of God Network News, the podcast that tells you what God's doing around the world. Not what CNN tells you, but what GNN tells you is going on in the world. If you're tired of listening to all of that crisis network news and you want to hear what God's doing, well, give us a listen. Steve Addison is a great podcaster and very passionate about movements of peoples to Christ. And Steve has his own podcast, very successful podcast, with over 226 podcast episodes. And the name of his podcast is On the Road to No Place Left. And we highly recommend that you subscribe to his podcast because he has an overwhelming library of exciting topics related to movements. And if you want to learn more about movements, this is the place to find the information. He has lots of training and tools and other resources that will really make your investigation of this topic successful. So we really want to thank Steve Addison and his partners there at movements.net/podcast. That's how you can find it, at movements.net/podcast, for all of the resources that he has given us for these next few podcasts. Thank you very much, Steve.
So that was one. And the other one was another sheikh who stood up and said, "Oh, this has been such a wonderful meeting. You know, my heart is so warm." And, you know, these sons of Jesus, that's how they called us, these sons of Jesus, they have been with us for barely a year, and they have done more good for us than Islam has in centuries. And with Islam, they meant the central government, the political system, everything. So I told you about the mobile clinic that we ran and the supplementary feeding center as a holistic expression of the kingdom of God. Our compassion ministry, I think, won their hearts that they were willing to listen to us in the first place. I think it was then the power of the gospel, the power of the truth, that opened their hearts, that they would, want to find out more. So, then they were dismissed, and basically I asked the question and said, if you're interested, and I'm hearing some of you are interested, we can have more meetings like this. Fast forward, so we have more meetings like this, and I realize some are open, some are ready to receive the good news that if they put their trust in Jesus, that then they can enter the kingdom of God and live under the reign of God. That was in essence the gospel message that we shared. But I wanted a movement. I didn't want these individuals to be drawn into the kingdom tonight, and so I moderated that and said, there is so much disunity, I said, around. There is war, there is inter-tribal conflict. It is so important that you are a unity, you're one. And so you've heard these voices, and these brothers, are investigating the Injil, the gospel of Christ. It's so important that you talk among one another and maintain your unity. Again, multi-individual conversion, steering a group that is interested, that is taking slow steps toward Christ as a whole toward Christ, rather than those few who might have been ready already at the point, to say, now you say your conversion prayer. Another thing that happened is that the rumors spread in the villages. And individuals approached us and said, we've heard that you are having these conversations with our leaders about the gospel and about Jesus. Can we have a gospel too? Can we be part of this too? And what I did is I always referred to these authorities and said, you are very welcome. Absolutely. This is not a limited club. The gospel of Christ is for everyone. I would like you to talk to your village chief and tell him of your interest, and then he will tell you what he thinks. But you're very welcome. And then I fed that back to the group of leaders and said, guys, this is your country. You're in charge. God established you as authority and as leaders. You have an immense responsibility here. I want you to know that individuals have asked my team here to also receive copies of the gospel. Everything here is in the open, so I would like to discuss with you and decide with you, how do we do this? So they owned it. It was their decision. It was how they did it. And basically we explored the option, would we distribute them? Would that be okay or not? And again, we want them to own it. It's theirs. So we decided with a little bit of influence, but basically their decision, they owned it, that we would offer gospels to the sheikhs, but it would be the sheikhs handing them out in their villages to whoever was interested. Another thing that happened was resistance. I mean, wherever the gospel is shared, there is some resistance, right? It's the rarest exception that there is none. So there were people in the villages complaining and saying, this is foreign. We don't want this. This is not the way of Islam. Interestingly, they said themselves, you don't worry about this. We will take care of this. And I mean, I couldn't have taken care of it. I was a foreigner. I was not there all the time. I didn't know what happened in the once the dusk is there's no electricity, conversations in the dark among neighbors, none of this. However, the sheikh would. And so he was the one who could deal and negotiate these objections.
You're listening to God Network News Podcast with your host, Cal Curtis. Look up our website at godnetworknews.com.
And so, in other words, a group journeying toward Christ, and we're taking the time to give those who are more thorough, who have more objections still, who need more truth, who need more dialogue, to give them the time until they are ready. Then after several months, that time came. And you can imagine it was one of the best weeks in my life. You've
got to tell us what happened.
So another meeting of that kind, again, around 50 village chiefs present, and some other men had joined, and some children were in the background, and some wives, women were also trying to listen in with one ear, but it was mostly the group of key leaders. And I explained to them that what it meant, I had, to put their trust in Jesus. And we had talked about what it means to follow him, to live the Jesus lifestyle. I explained and said, it is so important that you as a group walk this journey today. We cannot have, now fighting among you, disagreement among you. So, make sure that you all agree on this. And that took place. And so what happened then in the end was something that I first explained and then walked through, is that they all stood up and raised their hands, in prayer to God, and said a proclamation out loud together in the public. Again, the village school just 50-yard away, others around, so all public, nothing in hiding, and said that they put their trust in Jesus, that they renounce Satan and all his works, and they surrender, using the words, that is used for Islam, surrendering to God, surrender their lives to Jesus. And it was evident that first, that few of them immediately, thought, right, this is me, but how about my people? How about my village? And so instantly some of them were saying, can you come to my region? So there was a Sheikh William, and he said, I'm Sheikh William in the so-and-so mountain area. I'm the Sheikh over 8 villages, 11,000 people. Every one of them needs to hear. Can you come and teach them also? Another one said, how about the schools? The next generation needs also to grow up in this gospel message. Could you train our school teachers so that this could be taught in the school? So in other words, I think what we did is they came up with the ideas for multiplication, and they were different in different regions. And we then had an individual conversation with them, what it would look like. It wasn't as though every one of the 50 plus, was a multiplier. And the story then continued in very, very different ways. A few of those initial village chiefs became leaders of Jesus groups in their village. Some were simply door openers, who probably didn't even continue a very active walk with Christ, but basically opened their village to the good news. And there was then someone else, a champion, who continued the work. And now thinking multiplication, thinking existing structures, in our experience, it was often then the educated younger leader. So that could be either the son of the sheikh, but maybe even the headmaster of the local school. Someone who had gone to school in town, who had a little bit of education, a little bit of broader mindset maybe, and was then the one who took it on. So often today now in the churches that exist, it is not that these village chiefs automatically have become church leaders. It is often younger men in their 30s typically, who have now become the leaders and who carry on the movement.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider donating to help us continue to bring exciting stories fresh from the field. Visit our website at godnetworknews.com and select the PayPal link on the right side of the page, or consider becoming a Patreon partner to receive access to more valuable materials exclusive to our members.